to ask a few questions regarding this investigation. Keep in mind that this is still an ongoing investigation, so there may be some questions that we cannot answer. With that, I will turn it over to Mayor Mercado.
Thank you and good afternoon for you all coming today. 6 days ago, our community learned about the disappearance of Carlee Russell, and it sent fear and pandemonium not just through our city, but the entire state and the nation as well. The media quickly joined us to get the word out about Carlee. Our community sprung into action, and they organized search parties, arranged prayer vigils, and they took other steps that I'm not even aware of to help in this situation. The Hoover Police Department quickly rallied multiple partner agencies, stopping at nothing to find Carlee. I'd like to take this time to say thank you first to the Hoover Police Department, our partner agencies, our wonderful community, and to all those that aided in some way in connection with this situation. As the days have gone on, and it is important that we share this information now so that our community can be put at ease. So at this time, I'll turn the microphone over to Hoover Police Chief Nick Dursis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank everyone for being here today. Besides me stands the team who played a significant role in this investigation. I want to thank our department, members of surrounding local law enforcement agencies, the FBI, Secret Service, United States Marshals, and ALEA for their assistance in this case. We said from the evening of July 13th, our focus would be the safe return of Carlee Russell. That occurred on Saturday, July 15th, approximately 49 hours after she called 911 and disappeared. From that point, our focus has been to determine Carlee's whereabouts during that time and what exactly took place. Let me say up front, this investigation is not over. We're still working this case, and we'll work in this case until we uncover every piece of evidence that helps us account for the 49 hours that Carlee Russell was missing. However, through the public interest, and in some cases, public fear that this story has generated, we owe it to our citizens to tell them the facts that we have uncovered. So I will give you the facts that we know today. On July 13th, at approximately 8:20 p.m., Carlee left work from a business at the Summit. Surveillance video from her place of employment shows Carlee concealed a dark-colored bathrobe, a roll of toilet paper, and other items belonging to the business prior to her departure. She ordered food from Tzatziki's at the Colonnade and traveled there. She then traveled to Target on 280, where she purchased some granola bars and Cheez-Its. From there, she remained in the parking lot at that shopping center until 9:21 p.m. when she drove to I-459. Carlee communicated on her cell phone with individuals known to her while on her path of travel up to the point of calling 911 at 9:34 p.m. And at this time, we will play the 911 call in its entirety.
On Interstate 459, and there's just a kid just walking by themselves. Oh, hold on. Where on 459 are you? I'm right next to the exit 10 by the Hoover Med, like to get off by the Hoover Med. Okay, so you're before the exit? Yes. Okay, and were you headed southbound or northbound? Like towards Tuscaloosa or toward 280? Towards Tuscaloosa. Okay. And was the child on the left or right side? On the right side. Were they walking northbound or southbound? They're walking towards Tuscaloosa. Walking southbound? How old do they look? Like a toddler, like maybe like 3 or 4. Did you pull over with them? Are you still with them? Yes. you with the child right now? No, I'm not. I didn't get out of the car. I can see them though. Do you mind staying and keeping an eye on them until we get there? Yeah, sure, yeah. Okay, what kind of car are you in? I'm in a red Mercedes-Benz. Is it a sedan or SUV? SUV. I mean, it's a sedan. Sorry. Can you put your hazards on for me? Yeah, they're on. Okay. Did you talk to the child at all, or did you say anything to them? No. Okay. No. Do they look like they're injured? No, they don't. Are they white, black, Hispanic, or Asian? They're white. Okay. Is it male or female? I think it's a boy, a little boy. White male? Okay. So is he wearing clothes? Yes. Okay. What is he wearing? It's a white t-shirt, and it doesn't look like he has any pants on. It looks like a diaper. And you don't see any cars anywhere? No, no cars anywhere. Okay. All right. What's your name? My name is Carlee Russell. And you don't see any injuries on the child from where you're at, correct? No, but I can't really see them that good. Okay, try to keep an eye on them for the best you can, because I don't want you to lose track of them. Okay. All right, and do they have shoes on? No. Shoes? Not that I can see. I can't really see that. Look. Okay. All right, I've got them on the way, okay? Just try to keep an eye on them, but the officers are on the way, okay? Okay, thanks. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Carlee called a relative after speaking with the 911 operator. She went missing during that conversation sometime after 9:36 p.m. Traffic camera footage was obtained which depicted this portion of the incident, and that footage was analyzed as part of the investigation in conjunction with the 911 call and cell phone data to accurately determine the time frame. Carlee's 911 call remains the only report of a child on the interstate, despite numerous vehicles passing through the area at that time. No one has called to report that a child is missing, and the Hoover Police Department did not locate any evidence of a small child walking down the interstate. Data from Carlee's phone, including her Life 360 app, shows that she traveled approximately 600 yards in her vehicle while she was on the phone with 911, stating that she was following a child. 600 yards. That is 6 football fields straight, 600 yards. The Hoover 911 Center received a second call from Carlee's mother stating that a relative was on the phone with her when they heard Carlee scream, and then they had an open phone line. Hoover police officers arrived on the scene within 5 minutes of being dispatched, and several other officers arrived shortly. They located Carlee's wig and cell phone in the grass near the vehicle. Her purse was located in the front seat of her vehicle with her Apple Watch in the purse. The food she ordered for Tzatziki's was also in the car. The items she purchased from Target, as well as the items taken from her place of employment, were not in the vehicle, nor were they located anywhere around the scene. Hoover police deployed all available assets from the point in the search for Carlee. Additional resources were called in to include our own drone unit, crime scene investigators. Numerous detectives responded to the scene. Throughout the day Friday, officers from surrounding local and federal agencies assisted Hoover police in the search for Carlee Russell. Officers returned to the scene on 459 to conduct a thorough line search for evidence. K-9 teams from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department responded to check for any sign of Carlee, the child that she claimed to see, and anything else that could be considered evidence in this case. Those searches all turned up empty. Private citizens, including search parties organized by our family, friends, began looking everywhere that they could to find any trace. These searches took place throughout the day Friday and again on Saturday, yielding nothing. At 10:44 p.m. on July 15th, the Hoover 911 Center receives a call from Carlee's residence stating that she returned home on foot. In subsequent investigations, detectives obtained surveillance footage of Carlee walking down the sidewalk alone prior to arrival at her residence. She was conscious and speaking with paramedics when she was transported to UAB. Detectives were able to obtain a brief statement from her prior to being treated and released. During the statement, she told detectives that while traveling down the interstate, She saw a baby walking down the side of the road and called 911. She stated when she got out of her vehicle to check on the child, a man came out of the trees and mumbled that he was checking on the baby. She claimed that the man then picked her up and she screamed. She stated he then made her go over a fence. She claims he then forced her into a car, and the next thing she remembers is being in the trailer of an 18-wheeler. She stated that the male was with a female. However, she never saw the female, only hearing her voice. She also told detectives she could hear a baby crying. She told detectives the male had orange hair with a big bald spot on the back. She said she was able to escape the 18-wheeler and fled on foot, only to be captured again and then was put in a car. She claimed she was then blindfolded, but was not tied up because the captor said they did not want to leave impressions on her wrists. She said that they took her into a house and made her get undressed. She believes they took pictures of her, but she does not remember them having any physical or sexual contact. She stated the next day she woke up and was fed cheese crackers by the female. She said the woman also played with her hair, but could not remember anything else. At some point, she was put back in a vehicle she claims was able to escape while it was in the West Hoover area. She told detectives she ran through lots of woods until she came out near her residence. During this interview, detectives noted that Carlee had a small injury to her lip, and she claimed that her head was hurting. She also had a tear in her shirt. Detectives also noted that she had $107 cash in her right sock. Out of respect for Carlee and her family, detectives did not press for additional information in this interview and made plans to speak with her in detail after giving her time to rest. Detectives continue analyzing data from Carlee's cell phone that was left behind at the scene. We enlisted the help of the United States Secret Service in conducting this analysis. Part of what data includes several internet searches in the days leading up to their disappearance that I think are very relevant to this case. On July 11th at 7:30 a.m., the term, "You have to pay for an Amber Alert," was searched. On July 13th at 1:03 a.m., the day of her disappearance, the term, "How to take money from a register without being caught," was searched. On July 13th at 2:13 a.m., the day of her disappearance, the term Birmingham bus station was searched. On July 13th, 2:35 a.m., a search for a one-way bus ticket from Birmingham to Nashville was conducted with a departure date of July 13th. On July 13th at 12:10 p.m., a search for the movie Taken, a film about abduction, was conducted. There were two searches related to Amber Alerts on a computer at Carlee's place of employment, including one regarding the maximum age of an Amber Alert. There were other searches on Carlee's phone that appeared to shed some light on her mindset, but out of respect for her privacy, we will not be releasing the content of those searches at this time. We've asked to interview Carlee a second time, but have not been granted that request. As you can see, there are many questions left to be answered, but only Carlee can provide those answers. What we can say is that we've been unable to verify most of Carlee's initial statement made to investigators, and we have no reason to believe that there is a threat to the public safety related to this particular case. Thank you very much.
With that, we'll open the floor for some questions. Please raise your hand and I will call on you. Carol.
Chief, do you expect any charges against Carlee Russell in connection with the disappearance and in connection with what was taken from the Woodhouse spa?
Right now, our focus is to determine those 49 hours, so the investigation continues. So to be perfectly honest with you, that hasn't even entered our mind or been discussed.
One more question. Is it surprising to you that the family has not been cooperative in returning to be questioned?
Well, I think the family has stated to us that they didn't think that in her mental state right now, because of trauma of the incident, that she's not ready to talk, is what we've been told.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, question for Chief. You stated that the abductor had orange hair. Was this abductor black male? Was it female, black female, white female?
I believe it's a white male. Am I correct by saying that? Was it ever? Yeah, white male.
Is this alleged abductor yet on loose in the Hoover area?
Don't believe so.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief Bernie Dio, WBRC, has a toxicology report been done and were any drugs or illegal substances found in her system?
We have no report of that.
Is any indication of mental illness in this case?
Not that I'm aware of.
Lisa?
There's been a concern in the community that if this turned out not to be a true story, that the next time a young woman of color was missing, that it might not be taken seriously. How would you respond to that?
I'd respond to say that we investigate every crime to the fullest, just like we have this one.
Was she traveling with anyone, was she traveling with anyone since the time she disappeared, to your knowledge?
And not to my knowledge.
Chief, I know you said you weren't able to verify a lot of aspects of the story. Where do you think she went, and how would you characterize what happened here?
You know, that's the $100 question. You know, we pretty much know exactly what took place from the time she left work until she got on the 911 call, and we can see getting out of the car on the interstate from that footage. And after that, I think she only knows. We don't know.
Well, one quick follow-up, her parents. Did you speak with Carlee's parents, and why do you think it is they were so adamant that there was an abductor?
Yeah, I think parents are believing what their daughter's saying, and we've had a very good rapport with the parents, met with them on several occasions. I've talked to them today a few times, and to make them understand that we're under pressure from our community, not only in our community, the state, but nationally when the story hit. And I just wanted them to understand that today we were going to have a press conference, and what we were going to detail today are facts. And everything that I've told you today is actual facts. It's not innuendos. It's not what I think. It's not what these detectives think. It is the factual information that we have.
Chief Carlee Robinson, WBRC, how much time do you think you'll give the family before going back to Carlee for sentencing?
Well, I think our detectives have talked to the parents, and we're ready. We're ready to talk as soon as she's ready. So, you know, she called right now. We're ready.
You had one word to describe what went on. What would that word be?
Ooh, how about unknown? You know, we know the facts that we have. Everything else is unknown at this time.
In the back?
What have the past few days been like for you, your department? This has been a stressful search, hasn't it?
Well, absolutely. And again, the focus of the investigation that Thursday when she went missing, of course, the focus was to get Carlee home. That's what we want all. We wanted her safe and sound. And that's all happened. And then, of course, this has gotten to be not only a local state story, but a national story. So, you know, it is. It's a lot of stress on everyone in the Hoover Police Department, the mayor, every citizen here. We want to know the truth.
As you stand here, are you frustrated?
I wouldn't say I'm frustrated. I mean, I'm very happy that Carlee's home. That was the main ingredient here, and then we'll figure it out. I promise you that we'll end up figuring it out.
Any idea about the number of manpower hours or the expense of the drones and all the rest of the search that might have cost the city and the state and federal government?
Yeah, we haven't had time to consider that, but it's you know, again, these detectives that are here, this is just a small group of people that have been associated with this case. We have put every available resource that we have on this case because we wanted to make sure that we found out everything. We wanted to get her home, and we have.
Chief, is there any prior indication of mental health problems?
Not that I'm aware of.
Could you just expand on the people from the state, federal resources brought in? What were they doing exactly as you all were searching for her? Can you just expand on that?
Sure. A lot of the from the FBI side, several agents helping us interview. I mean, as you well know, in a case like this, especially when it goes national, we got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls. And when you get those calls, some of them may just be outlandish, but you got to follow up on them because you never know that you may get that one tidbit. And I'd also say too that we had a great cooperation with the family. The family received hundreds and hundreds of tips, and every time they got a tip, they sent it to us.
Would you say a crime has been committed?
No,
In this case?
we have not determined that. No.
Keith Mims, WAGG 610 Summit Media. Question for Chief. With all the searches that you mentioned, Chief, that were on Carlee's phone, does that kind of give you an indication of her mind state during this ordeal, 48 hours
Yeah.
that she went missing?
Well, you know, again, we want to talk in facts, and I do think it's highly unusual to the day that someone gets kidnapped, that 7 hours, 8 hours before that, that they're searching the internet, Googling the movie Taken about an abduction. I find that very, very strange. Yes.
Yes. Do you feel confident, do your investigators feel confident that you know why Carlee Russell may have done this?
No, we do not know. Absolutely not.
Chief, can you explain for us, you mentioned that while I believe you said Carlee was on the phone with 911, she was traveling 6 football fields, which tells you what?
Which tells me that I've had kids, and I'm sure a lot of people here have, and it's very, very, again, she said it, and I'm not saying it couldn't happen because I've always been one of these guys, never say never, but 6 football fields. I like athletics, I like football. 6 football fields. To think that a toddler, barefoot, that could be 3 or 4 years old, is going to travel 6 football fields without getting in the roadway, without crying, without any just moving down. It's just very hard for me to understand.
Chief, have you used any technology to enhance that video from 459? And did you see a man grab her?
We did not see, from what we can tell, we don't see anybody on the interstate other than her car and then someone getting out of her driver's side. We have sent that off to the FBI for enhancement. It has not been returned.
Do you think in this case that charges will be forthcoming towards Carlee Russell? And how serious of a crime is it to not only fabricate a 911 call, but to lie to law enforcement during an investigation?
Well, again, that's not something that we've been discussed as we're going through the still investigation. But, people have to understand that when someone says something like this, we put every available resource. Everybody comes together from state, local, federal. It's just a lot of work, and gentleman early said frustrated. I mean, it is a little frustrating to think that all this has been done and we can't find anything out.
Did anyone see her calling in from the side of the road when she made that 911 call?
Not to my knowledge.
All right,
So
last
is
question here.
Is this investigation held up until you can speak once again to Carlee Russell?
Well, there's a few things that we're still doing, but obviously we want to talk to Carlee as soon as we can and do an in-depth interview. And at that time, I think we'll have these investigators doing some other things. So
That's all the questions we're going to answer today. We appreciate you guys coming, and we'll be following up with y'all later. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, Chief.
Jesus. Eva, how are you? It was sloppy without you for like the first 7 minutes. It was like a deer caught in the headlights, but I'm floored. I mean, I knew this was coming. I sort of, you see the, like the gaps, right? You have a car. Typically in these cases, that car leads to another camera. Police then release further information, what they're looking for, whether it's a tag, a suspect. None of that came out, and then she just walked home. And this is he the chief of police? Whoever he is, he's given and continues giving this family and this woman grace. No charges thus far. I don't think you could charge with, I mean, maybe the false 911 call or abusing 911 services, but this man has given this woman a lot of grace. Hi, Eva.
Hi. I am shook right now. I'm shocked. I honestly believe that she was abducted all the way up until yesterday. Today was the first day when I woke up and I was like, but yeah, I think it's really smart. That is the police chief. I think it's really smart, number one, on his part, to give her grace, because people just questioning her alone are already getting ripped apart. Now that the facts and the details are out there, most of them, and we kind of all know what this looks like now, he doesn't really have to say anything. He can give her grace because I think everybody else is going to let that family and her know exactly how they feel. She's already embarrassed herself now. So I think it's wise on his part to stay professional about it.
You listen to the resources that they put in. We didn't know the Secret Service was involved. We learned on previous cases that anytime it comes to cyber stuff, the Secret Service are your guys. So Secret Service, FBI, U.S. Marshals, state officials. And I told you earlier, I'm like, that road was filled with like, there was like 30, 40 law enforcement vehicles parked on that highway right when this happened. I saw on TikTok. There was a lot of resources thrown at this, and to learn that not only did, I mean, I'm just taking this all in, but not only did she fabricate this, she stole from her employer. I mean, it's not a big deal, right? Toilet paper, but I mean, it sounds like she was really getting ready to hunker down. She got some toilet paper, some snacks from Target, and disappeared and had herself. I mean, that poll, I asked people on Twitter earlier what they thought right before 2 hours, and 67%, 62% said that this woman just went away on a vacay. Obvious, it goes without saying, behavioral health issues are obvious here. But the type that we talked about and spoke about when she returned that night, something where you're, things like this do occur, right? Schizophrenia does rear its head at this age. Bipolar, there's a BPD. Most diagnoses don't even come out until like your early 30s. So yeah, she could have been going through a behavioral crisis and seen some stuff, right? Or even drugs could have been involved. But this is completely fabricated. This is wild. And to then steal stuff and sort of prep, and you saw the search terms, like how old do you have to be to have an Amber Alert? We scream and kick sometimes for children to have Amber Alerts, right? And because they don't have a license plate, or there's a small nuance in each state's legal requirements for an Amber Alert. Oftentimes children don't, and this woman was looking for Amber Alerts for herself. This is sick.
Yeah, the searches is that's what really does it for me. And you say, there's behavioral health here. I mean, behavioral health problems in the sense of maybe narcissism, because anybody that would want to make their own family, your own parents, wonder where you are in that kind of way, knowing that, human trafficking is a big subject right now. It's a big concern. It's just being a female and young and pretty, and, you leave the house, your parents already worry about you. So to make them worry in this kind of way, all your friends, your family, that's a twisted, sick kind of behavioral health issue. I mean, it's not the kind, like you said, that we were talking about, maybe she had like some kind of schizophrenic breakdown. This is the age. It's actually, my aunt was around 23 when she was diagnosed. I have a cousin, he was 21. It's usually in your early 20s. And that was one of the first things that I thought of, maybe what she thought she was seeing wasn't really there, but she thought, I don't know. It's twisted all the way around.
We will get back to this. This wasn't our main focus for today. We have Steve Canton joining us from Chester County, South Carolina. This is the property that the green Chevy Avalanche was taken from last week, unknown to a lot of people. I'm going to add him in. We're going to get some footage up. Steve, I'm going to unmute your mic. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
I can't complain. I know we all spoke earlier, but glad that Eva finally gets to see you, and you get to see her. And we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. You said you were on with Daily Mail before, and you have another interview tonight.
Yeah, Live Nation at 10 tonight. Keeping me busy today.
You are retired, and you said you like keeping busy. You reminded me of me yesterday. You were just as curious. You were peeking around, weren't scared to talk to people, and that's how I found you. I'm excited that you're here. I think our community probably has a lot of questions about this one. I'd love to get you on a later date with maybe Joe, but today we just appreciate the time. I'm going to throw up some footage here. I know I've been sending you some emails, and I'm going to let it play while we talk, because it's about 15 minutes, and maybe that's a good time allotment here to have a conversation. But I'm going to just sort of talk about what the public is seeing here, and remind people that just because something looks shady, creepy, doesn't necessarily mean someone is guilty of anything, right?
Right.
But people have noticed, the first thing that stood out was the burn pit, or several burn pits. And you had said to me, look, perhaps a burn pit in this area isn't off, but given the circumstances, it's a little messy, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, living in a rural area, I mean, you're liable to burn tree limbs, extra grass. I mean, that's not out of the ordinary, but you're exactly right. As you see in the video, it's not like he was a neat freak and kept everything clean. I mean, you see debris and trash and things covered up everywhere. So when I saw that, when you sent me the footage, that was the first thing that sort of stuck out to me, is why does he have a burn pit? Because you can even look, if you go along the road right there, you can even see just concrete blocks that's been there probably for 20 or 30 years. I mean, it's sketchy to say the least.
It's before we get there, and I'm sure Eva's gonna want to chime in. She always has some good questions. It takes us a second to settle in, but we're excited. Why don't you give folks a background of how long you've been here, how you know this man? You said you've always sort of been a little weary of him, even before you got this news. We talked earlier, and you sort of you said some things that made me sort of sit back and say, "Huh." You were talking about buzzards or vultures, and we know about that in this community because we do look for missing people, and sometimes there's closure that involves those type of wildlife, right?
Right.
And you said you were looking for that, and I stopped you and I said, "Wait, were you looking for that before or after you learned of Rex?" And you said before. So why don't you give folks a little background? I'll let you take the mic for a bit and just get them acclimated with why you're in this area, who you are, and why you're sitting next to the brother of a serial killer.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised here, and I left and went in the military, and came back home and found this little place. Most of us moved out here because it is kind of quiet. It is a rural town, but it's kind of off the beaten path, but yet close enough to town. You can be there in 5-6 minutes. So that's not out, it's one of those things. Well, I noticed immediately when I moved here about 22 and a half years ago, I rode down to the end of the road, and it's the first thing that just sort of threw me for a loop was there's this ominous gate, and the wooding, the gate and the partial fence. But the thing that really stuck out to me was no warrant, no entry. He did have some flags up back in the day, and I kind of think he did have it warned where he had video surveillance and that kind of thing. Well, 22 and a half years ago, you're kind of thinking, all right, what in the world is this guy trying to hide back here? Because in South Carolina, you have to have a no trespassing sign in order to prosecute somebody if they get on your property. So that normally, I'm just used to seeing that. And just about the other day, there was people putting signs up, I guess, to keep the people out of there. But everybody I've talked to, including law enforcement, we all think, that's just a bit much. I mean, that's kind of overkill for what you're wanting to do. I didn't really know him that well because, we're about 800 to 1,000 feet apart. It's just down the road from my house, as you observed. And we did have a verbal altercation with the neighbor that has a lot between us over the property line, and he just chimed in and wanted to be obnoxious. I kind of told him what I thought of it, and I kind of left it as he just has a bad attitude, and I just sort of ignored him because, again, he's past our house, so I'm not really worried about it. Well, over the years, I've seen deuce and a half Army trucks, various things like gunfire in the middle of the night, dogs running around in the middle of the night. He has probably, I would guess, 5, 6, 8, 10 dogs. It's just constantly around the perimeter. And as you walk by or ride by, that usually sets them off. So, over the years, like I told you, I've talked to several of the neighbors. He has been known he cut a boat in half, which I think Fox News verified that. They told me, I think it was yesterday, threw dynamite in the pond. He has had altercations with everybody in the neighborhood. He hit my next door neighbor in the head with a pole. And then I talked to 2 young guys, probably in their early 20s yesterday. They rode up on 4-wheelers, and I was like, hey, y'all know what's going on? No, not really. So after we got talking about it, then they were like, oh yeah, he cussed me out several times. So everybody that I know that has had any dealings with him just knows he has a bad attitude. But, and I'll tell you, he's kind of a recluse. You don't see him out too often. Like I've told everybody before, it's not completely terrible. I mean, he waves every time he rides by. He slows down if I'm out walking on the road. Even when I was running back in the day before I blew my knees, like I told you before, we had a Scottish Terrier get out, and it went to his house. He called the vet. We called and talked to him. He was very cordial, and we got the dog back. My oldest daughter went and got him. So, I mean, it's not a completely creepy side, but, you know, comparative, just being purely objective. As I see the videos of Rex, and then I compare what I know of Craig, I personally would think Craig's even probably worse than Rex. So then that begs the question to me is, you know, is this guy just as bad as the brother, or he's just one of those with a bad attitude? And since all this has happened, I didn't realize, you know, the brother had purchased 4 properties here. Now, as I understand it, he recently purchased them, but I think it's because Craig did not pay the property taxes, and I think they wanted to keep it. So he then bought the properties. But overall, it's been 4. And I will tell you, even talking to a neighbor, Craig has been here for at least 24 years, and people just avoid him. So it's, as you can see through the aerial footage, I mean, it is kind of a sketchy place. I mean, you would think nobody lives there, and, you know, the burn piles and the vehicles. I've not ever been crazy enough to get close enough to it. I do believe he has cameras up in there because he has mentioned things in the past that makes you wonder how in the world he would have known it, because he couldn't be everywhere. And as you see, I mean, there's pretty much between my house and his, there is only a wooded area. So it's not like it's easily accessible. And he's just he's a character. I don't know if you want to talk about Thursday. What happened is we were out walking, and then we saw undercover, I guess they were sheriff's deputies or whoever. They were sitting up the street. So I thought something was going on there. Unmarked cars kept riding by, and then eventually, you know, I said, well, something's going down. There's too many strange people in the area that just kind of stick out like sore thumbs. So I was going to take my boat back to the lake. And then as I eased out of the driveway, I happened to look down the street, and that's why I saw the whole congregation right in front of Craig's house. And I said, well, maybe, you know, it could be something further down the street at the end where you saw that log cabin. Well, at that time, probably 30 seconds to a minute later, Rollback came by with his Chevy Avalanche, the green Avalanche with the lumber rack on the back, so to speak. And it was uncovered, so I could clearly see it. And I've seen this truck 1,000 times. And it was rolled out, and it had a sheriff's deputy behind, Chester County Sheriff's deputy, and then some unmarked car behind it. Well, then I immediately started asking questions, you know, hey, did he get busted for something? And I thought it may have been something stupid like meth or some drugs, something, just some kind of routine, something you would expect to see around here. And then a couple of days later, because they ultimately ended up leaving, they were probably there another 30 minutes and they were gone. So I got back that evening and it was clear. Well, a couple of days later, Fox News came up and the reporter told me what was happening. So then that's when I started digging around and looking. I did not realize he had a brother. I will tell you, looking at both of them, they could be twins. Like I told you, the difference between the two was the Craig has shorter hair and it's gray. I don't think he dyes his hair like his brother, but they're the same stature, same build. He is a big guy, and he's very loud. He can be obnoxious. That doesn't prove anybody's guilty of anything other than he's just a bad person and a bad neighbor with, or at least with an attitude. But he has been one of those people for 22 and a half years, because even seeing all this, it doesn't surprise me. But for 22 and a half years, that is one guy, and everybody I've ever talked to is kind of like, what are they hiding down there? Why do they have the gate up? Why are they buying all this wooded property? with all the bad interactions, because ultimately there's a lot of older people in this town, and it's really not that bad. It can be a quiet, beautiful place out here, but he's a recluse. He stays a lot to himself. I can probably tell you maybe 5 people that I've ever seen go down there, and one of those would have been his wife. One of them would have been, I'm assuming that's his current girlfriend, the neighbor next door, and then the neighbor behind him. Outside of that, I've never seen anybody. It's a sketchy situation, and we've all just tried to avoid him.
And you said that he doesn't have like friends. There's not people like coming to visit there, people coming and going, family coming and going, anything like that.
No, because one of the things they were all asking me is like, hey, have you ever seen Rex down here? Until the other day, I did not even know he existed. I do remember Craig saying he was from New York, so that didn't surprise me. I've not even seen a car that I can recall that even have a New York license plate. It's just making connections, just like your brain's going to do to create closure. But I know he would leave and go to work every day like normal people. I think he did construction work, and he'd come back in evenings, but sometimes he'd be gone for days. I had one of the neighbors tell me he would brag about how fast he could get to New York and back. But again, I didn't think anything about it because I knew he was from New York. I figured he'd seen his family. But, if you notice right there in the video that's up now, you see the red pickup truck. He drove that thing for years, and I guess it finally died. So I don't know. I know the records show the Chevy Avalanche. I think he got it between 2014 2016. I do know you see the deuce and a half, the military vehicle right there. I do believe if the guy behind him, I think he also has one very similar to that. So occasionally they'll get out and looks like they're trying to do some kind of exercises, but that's been kind of few and far between. I'm ex-military, so if you got a toy like that, why not get out and play with it? But the thing that always, especially when I look in the videos that y'all had up, it's all the tarps, it's all the craziness, the random gunfire you hear in the night sometimes, those burn pits. I've even gone to the point where I've looked at Google Earth and trying to look and just kind of see what I see over the years. And you can't see a lot because of the trees. But, when you add all the numbers up, it makes you wonder what in the world, this guy's up to. And I've talked to a lot of the neighbors. And if Rex was planning on retiring down here, I think that's terrified everybody I talked to have those two here on the same street in a rural southern town that has access to Charlotte, North Carolina, with the popular streets where prostitutes and stuff are right there on Trade Street. You can be there in 45 minutes. So I can't tell you any more than what I've seen, but I can tell you it's been a sketchy guy. And it's been noisy, and it's been weird. I can say that to say the least.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for your service. I'm reminded that you are a vet, and so when you pointed out things like, "Hey, these guys in the white van seem like they're military," I pay attention because you're military. So thank you for your service.
Sure.
B, I think that car, the 2014 to 2016, is interesting because what you're implying, or what I'm hearing, maybe we clarify, but you're implying that Rex gave this vehicle to his brother, and not only gave it to his brother, but and I'll say it because I'm thinking it, but potentially has DNA crime or had crime occur in that car and then handed it to his brother.
Right.
But, people have pointed out that Craig was reportedly Rex's best man at the wedding, so it looks like they're close. Like there's some things in my mind that just snap. You on Google Earth in Long Island, you see this old style vehicle, older style. Yeah, it's almost antique, or it is antique, and then you see these type of vehicles here.
I think you cut out.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah,
last
for a
little bit.
second.
Yeah, so I think I said in terms of what I'm seeing, like between the two houses, like the older style antique cars, it starts building this relation between two brothers that might be very close, likely
Right.
are.
And it's been amazing that I don't see him come down here, but I guess given his profession and where he lived, I could probably see that not happening. Because, I'm here a lot, especially since I retired in 2010. So I kind of notice everybody, and just living in a rural country town, when somebody weird shows up, you tend to know it. And again, I told you, I'm one of those guys that I look in vehicles as they ride by if I'm out walking, and I do pay attention. And he was one of those people that just gave me a bad vibe. Again, I'm not saying he done anything wrong. He's just one of those people that I have met in my life that I feel sketchy. I feel like I have to pay attention to, and I need to kind of pay attention because you just don't know when you're going to see that one thing. Because as you notice by going out to the house, it is just like something, man, it's like something I would see off a horror movie. I mean, it's just, you expect somebody to jump out with a chainsaw or something. I mean, it doesn't fit the whole neighborhood. I mean, it's not like we live in a multi-million-dollar neighborhood, of course, but he's, you would have to kind of see his behavior. And like I told you too, it's uncanny how much these two guys, to be just brothers a couple of years apart, that they could pass as twins. Now, the thing that really concerns me is, like I told you about when the police raided and took his truck, that they did not arrest him, that I found out later. But if I remember one of the reports correctly, they said that in 2022, there was a green Chevy Avalanche pickup truck. And if that is the case, then that means, I'm assuming Craig had to be up there. And then how do you get up there and your brother use your truck and then you not know about it? I mean, it all just seems fishy. My personal opinion is, I kind of think, I don't know what the deal is with Craig, really how intelligent he is, because apparently the family seems to be highly intelligent, is that he is kind of living off the brother. I guess he does have a job to make a little bit of money, but then I almost feel like, learning all this, he might even be either part of the situation or beholden to the brother to cover him up. Because why else in the world would you drive 11, 12 hours from here to New York and, be back in a day or so, and all this other crazy stuff keep happening? I don't think he's even been driving that truck this long. I know it's been registered to his name since then, because I know you have to do that to get a tag on it. But it seems like it's only been about 3 or 4 years that I've actually seen it on the road. And it may have just been sitting down there, but because as you can see, you can just hide anything in the world. And without a drone, you won't see anything, because the Google Maps, the Google Earth don't really show you a lot. So it's
Even for people to get a sense, this footage that you're seeing is the best footage. And I was at your house for quite some time. I 3 battery loads. The first one gives you sort of, and it's good, I guess. The first one gives you sort of an idea or perspective of how broad that land is, and there's so much water and land, and you can't even see anything until the drone. So this footage, I had to drop down pretty low to see what you guys are seeing. I can imagine at nighttime, if you wanted to get away in those woods somewhere to do something devious, you could. Doesn't mean that he was, but it certainly, right. When people saw these images on Twitter, there's questions. And I think people rightfully from this kind of country setting say, look, this is normal out here. And I've seen this in Rogersville, Tennessee for people out in the holler, they store stuff like this. But this is an eyesore in your community. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that you said that. I'm saying this when I launched a drone and you see sort of visually what the other houses look like in this beautiful area. And you also point out, look, yeah, we're in the country, but we're not that far from the highway. We're not that far from Charlotte, right? So you make some good points there, and I think it's good to hear the perspective from someone who sits, not even 1,000 feet away. So.
Did you happen to, I guess you probably didn't, but I was just curious if you haven't, or if you are, to maybe fly your drone over the pond and the other lots that they have purchased, close to the property. Again, I'm not going to say, that somebody can't find anything, but I would almost kind of wonder if they are doing something that brought things here, would they be stupid enough to store it in that stuff, or would they try to use one of these other vacant lots? Because if I understood the reports correctly, the bodies they found in New York were all dismembered. So I would assume, if you're going to have that MO, you're going to follow the same thing. So if they're in cahoots together doing it, then perhaps they're doing the same thing here. And as you can see, I mean, you could darn near hire a pickup truck or anything in those trees being that way, except for maybe the dead of winter when a lot of those evergreens, the deciduous trees have lost their leaves. But I've even looked on Google Earth that look like the wintertime, and it's still so many evergreens here. If you dismember a body, and like I said, that burn pit right there, I'm telling you, that just throws me off, because then you see the gas can right there. And
there's also a green hose. It's hard to see, but I'll show you the actual images, not the video, but I showed you. But there's a green water hose too that's running adjacent to all this. Like, I don't know. I told you I'm from Connecticut. We don't live like this. This is wild.
Well, I mean, like I told you, it would not be uncommon for people to burn leaves and limbs and all that kind of stuff. But if you look here, it's like Sesame Street back in the day. Which one of these don't belong? With all the garbage and the piled lumber and he's got everything you could ever imagine. What in the world would he be burning anyway? It's like he didn't take time to probably haul, unless he's just burning his trash. That is the only one thing I could potentially think of. But I would still think most likely he's probably hauling off, because we literally, and I don't know if you noticed this, but we have a trash dump place. I mean, not a mile up the road, so it's not like it would be hard. And most of the time I've ever seen him, he's heading that way anyway, heading out of town. So it's one of those things that's just, I don't know. It just sticks out to me as very sketchy.
You made a good point, because originally when I rely on people that live in these environments, and someone on Twitter said, look, this is normal. But there's two burn pits, right? And it looks like they've been used recently. One is very large. And you said, look, brother, he's been here for 23, 24 years. Look at how much garbage he's hoarding. Why would he all of a sudden be burning so much? And you made a good point. So Eva, do you have any questions on this particular image, or for Steve up until here? Because I'm going to talk a little about the FBI and what the heck they're doing out there.
Not up to this point. Steve's actually fantastic. He's answering all the questions before we ask him. So, no, it's really weird, because when we were first going over like all the drone footage last night, and you had said, you were like, well, that burn pit sticks out. And first was, when you live in the country, I actually lived like fairly out in the country when I was a teenager. We kind of lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, we had a burn pit. I'm like, it's not weird. But you made a really good point. It's like a junkyard out there, and his property is so wooded. He's not cleaning anything up. He's not trimming trees. He's not like maintaining his properties. So it makes you wonder, like, what is he burning?
The only other thing I could potentially think of, because you're exactly right. People in the country, even when I go to the lake, I mean, we'll build a bonfire and do marshmallows and all that stuff with the kids. I mean, that's not abnormal anywhere. But you're exactly right. There is probably a gazillion pieces of something in there. And then like the little shed, the tarp kind of thing is right there, like the canopy right in front of those vehicles there. That's been recent. I don't know what's going on. I then started wondering maybe if maybe they thought something was going to happen, and maybe he started burning evidence, and, because it's kind of hard if to get rid of something, at least just destroy it with fire. Again, he has a bunch of dogs. I think, he doesn't really hunt. I've never seen him in any hunting gear, anything like that. Yeah, again, he may be a dog lover. My daughter has 2 dogs herself. But when you hear those random gunshots, and I'm not talking about an occasional, a boom boom in the daytime. We're out here in God's country, and people shoot, they deer hunt. That's normal. But I'm talking 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you hear pop, 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 pop. It doesn't sound like an assault weapon, but it kind of sounds like maybe a Glock or something, 9mm just being fired. Sometimes you hear it's something that sounds like equipment moving around, which I don't see anything that looks like they've done anything. So I don't know if they've been clearing brush. I do know they've been all of them together have been trying to clean up and put up fencing and stuff. It's just they've created this compound out here that I'm really surprised that nobody has tried to go sneak in and do anything.
We spoke about a couple things before we get to yesterday. When they originally came for the Green Avalanche, I asked you, were there cadaver dogs? And you said no. This seemed like they had long arms. They were prepared in case he put up a fight. Obviously, I would be too seeing those signs on that gate. But they came for something specific, which was that car, and then left. It wasn't like this big search where they had police swarming the property, searching, sniffing with dogs, right?
Right. It was basically, from what I could see, it was probably 4 or 5 cars popped up, a couple of unmarked sheriff's deputy in a pickup truck. It looks like they jumped out in SRT gear, a couple of assault rifles, FBI on some of the patches. Looks like they executed fairly easy. There was no gunfire. I mean, literally, they snuck in. I was walking all morning, and I said, it's about time to go get a little bit of breakfast in me. And I'm gonna go back out and see what's going on with this undercover people I see sitting everywhere. And within a 20-minute span, they snuck in 5 or 6 cars, eased up. And by the time I got myself back out there and got in the truck, they had done loaded the truck and was hauling it off. So they knew exactly what they were going for. It is, it's uncanny. I guess you can't really find anything, in plain sight when you go down there. I guess that's what the search warrant was for, was to pick up that truck. But it was pretty routine. I mean, yeah, it was a little overkill for a local raid normally that you would see here. Wasn't as many local police as I would expected. But it was fairly quiet. They got it, they rolled out, and that was just the end of it. And they didn't tell anybody.
Keep in mind, they had 200 guns they found in Long Island from his brother, so they were being cautious.
Oh, well, and I assume that I do know he has firearms. Like I said, he is ex-military. That the FBI told me. I would assume he's probably got a ton of weapons in there if he can afford it. I'm not really sure, but I've heard multiple gunshots of different caliber coming from that direction, and there's not really anybody close to him, I would think, that would be shooting, because really it was his area and then my next door neighbor. Well, obviously I can hear him when he fires off around. So I imagine he's got at least a little stash in there. And I know if they were with the local jurisdiction, I mean, they know the size of this guy. I mean, he's a big, tall drink of water himself. He's probably 6'5", 6'6", probably 300 pounds. I think he lost a little bit of weight, but he's a mammoth-sized guy.
You said yesterday, Steve, when the woman from CNN came on your property, I think you used the word compound. And I don't know if you said apocalyptic or if my mind went there, but you sort of said it looks like, or it sounded like, or that he was building this kind of compound. Do you mean apocalyptic compound, or just a compound in general to keep folks? What do you mean by compound?
I look at it this way. I know some doomsday preppers, right? They prep for bad things happening. I think they're probably everywhere, up north, south, east. It doesn't matter. I know a lot of those guys. And I don't know of anybody. I've seen one other place in York County, which is just north of us, that looks very similar to Craig's place. I ride by there all the time, and I'm just freaking out, going, what kind of nuts is living in this place? I get it. You might want a little seclusion. I get it. A lot of people want to retire and live out in the country, and if you want to walk outside and drink a beer in your underwear, that's what you want to do. However, when you go to the gate and you go to all the stuff, the military gear and all this other stuff, I personally being in the military and being all over half the world, it is just overkill. It is just crazy. Well, then you get to talking to them, and it's like, well, we're buying up half of this. We're going to buy everything we can because we want this to ourselves out here. Well, in passing, it doesn't sound like a big deal if you want your family to come out and you just have your little area and that's all you worry about. I can look at that positively. However, in light of everything I've seen over the last 23 years and then what's happened recently, I just feel like they have created this area of, don't come out here, don't mess with us. I think you got to have wearables of titanium to put up something like that. No warrant, no entry. Because to me, you're just asking for law enforcement to come in there and knock on your door just to see what you're doing. But it is, to me, especially looking at this drone footage even more, to me, this is like some crime scenes I've seen before where they, I kind of think about Ruby Ridge. I start thinking about some things that I've seen over the years growing up that I could just see this kind of environment being one of those linchpin places that you wouldn't see happening and something could just catastrophic happening.
Yeah, these images of this building that's his house where he lives, his domicile. It's just surrounded by trees that are like overreaching everything. But then when you zoom into the photos, even the windows have vines growing around them. This is it's creepy at the very least. You said yesterday, so I was pulling out. CNN was interviewing you, and then a flurry of local reporters came and did their thing. I don't know. It was like a dog and pony show. It was weird. I pulled out, and then you said there was two guys walking in like sort of plain clothes down your neighborhood. Those were FBI agents?
Yes. So actually they came by, excuse me for looking because I've seen traffic go by. They were, again, they look like they would belong here. Long hair, beards. They look like they belong in the South. It didn't really surprise me. And of course, we've had a lot of neighbors riding up and down. People are starting to get wind of it. But while I was doing the interviews, all of a sudden these two guys jumped out of a little small car you would see anywhere, everywhere. I think it was a little Hyundai or something. And he's like, hey, here's my card. I'm agent so-and-so, we want to talk to you. And I was like, okay, give me a call when you can. I said, all right. So they came back out, and right about the time he texted me and said, we're done doing whatever we're doing. You got time to chat. And I said, okay. And they came out. Well, right before, like I told you before, and it was kind of weird, a marked car pulls up. Guy jumps out like Barney Fife on Mayberry, Andy Griffith show, and he's like, "Hey, who's over here?" And I was like, "Excuse me." He's like, "Who's on this property?" Well, this is the property right beside mine, which is between Craig's and Rex's property and mine. And he's like, "Well, the guy that owns the property called and said somebody's on his property." And I looked at him, I said, dude, seriously, one, I've been here all day and there's nobody on there. And two, it's basically a jungle out here. So nobody wants to be there. There's no value there. Well, then those guys showed up, and then we had a chat. And then basically they just pulled me off to the side. There was two FBI agents and a local undercover, I guess, sheriff's deputy. And they were just like, hey, look, we want to check in with the neighbors, we want to check off the boxes and, make sure we have no loose ends, all that kind of stuff. So they kind of asked me some of the basic same questions, what I thought about him, if I noticed anything, if I noticed anybody down here, all the basic one-on-one questions. And then, if you think of anything else that might be beneficial to us. And I told him all the stories I've told you. I said, I'm not going to make up anything on him. I said, because this guy could be just as innocent as anybody. I said, but I can honestly tell you, he's weird. His place is weird, and he's got a bad attitude. And I think the evidence speaks for itself with that and everybody's testimony. So they basically, at least their theory was that he was not a suspect. and he was cooperating, and everything was copacetic at that point. And I looked at him and said, I believe what you say. I take it with a grain of salt, because I realize you guys aren't going to tell us a darn thing, and you guys will do what you have to do. And I get it. You need to keep some secrecy, and I know you need to keep the integrity of the investigation. So only thing I really complained to him about was, if you guys come in here and you do all that, why didn't you let the neighborhood know if you're going to take the guy's private property and then you're going to leave him? Now you're leaving everybody else to draw their own conclusions. And that started upsetting a lot of neighbors. And that's what kind of led me to all of this. You know what? If everybody else don't want to go talk to the press, I will. Because at least I want the neighbors and the people here in town, because we've had some bad publicity over the years. I wanted them to feel comfortable that, hey, look, I live here. I'm fairly close to him. And if I'm not trying to pack up and run around here with firearms all day, he may be guilty, but it's still nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, in police defense, in law enforcement's defense, Steve, they had to coordinate that vehicle seizure without Rex knowing, and arresting him probably simultaneously on Thursday at 8 p.m. right when they arrested him. So if
I do remember right, they got this truck Friday morning about 10 o'clock. So it was the day after they got Rex. Yeah.
Yeah, because they wouldn't want to take it before, right? Then they give Rex a heads up, and all of a sudden he's on the lam. Right. And then finally, the last piece, which was the most intriguing to me, you said that a white truck that had two individuals that looked to be military pulled up and took either a briefcase or a leather satchel from the property yesterday or today.
It was yesterday. So, the girl across the street's a single mom, and if you've noticed, a lot of people were parking on her side over there as well. And I just completely forgot, because like I said, she's about some of my kids' age. So I was like, well, I better go talk to her. So about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I was heading across the street, and I just happened to look down towards Craig's house. And then I said, well, So I saw a white older model pickup truck backed up to the gate. And I said, this seems to be odd, because I know he don't really have any friends. And I also know, let's just say he had friends. Who in their right mind is going to go after the FBI just seized the vehicle and start taking stuff out of his house? I mean, that just seems like a reason to get arrested. So I was probably in there 10 minutes. And another news agency contacted me. So I'd done a short interview, about 10 minutes, right there in the driveway. Well, by the time I got out there, the vehicles had gone. Well, then I talked to, I guess he's a photographer that's been sitting out there all day. And I said, could you tell me who that was in the white truck? Did you figure it out? And he said, oh, let me show you the pictures. So what it appeared to be was there were two white pickup trucks that just sort of eased into the neighborhood. He followed them down across from the gate right there. And then two guys jumped out of a vehicle that had, a baseball cap about like you're wearing, had a clean cut beard, stood militaristic. And I was like, okay, first of all, I know Craig don't have clean cut friends like that. And I said, these guys don't even look like anybody I've ever seen in Chester, period. And at the same time, because he was showing me the different snapshots going through. He said, he asked the guys, he said, are you friends or something? I think they didn't say anything. He said, well, are you law enforcement? And then I think one of those guys chimed back, like, go on, go away. And then I think maybe they asked him if he was media. And then I think they had like a Mexican standoff. They were like both standing there taking pictures of each other. But then as he showed them to me, and I could see him pointing, they grabbed like it was like a leather type satchel, like maybe some people might carry a laptop in. If you've been to college, you might see a professor carry papers, or a teacher or something like that. And then I think they grabbed some other kind of bag. At that point, I guess they did all that in front of him, but then they closed the gate. They were in there probably 10 minutes, I think he said, because I know I wasn't over there too long. And then they rolled out and just rolled away. And, it looks to me, they look like FBI or somebody. And I don't know if the gate was actually locked, the photographer seemed to think they had a key to get in, but obviously, I mean, come on, you see the disarray of the yard. Can you imagine what the house would be like? So those guys had to know what they were going after, and then they just eased out and went away. I honestly expected to see maybe another raid this morning if they found something. My question I've been asking myself is, is this an opportunity? And I did tell you earlier about the car, the blue car. So let me back up a second. So a blue car shows up yesterday sometime. I don't know exactly what time because I missed it. The guy had pictures of Craig backing in because he's a big guy, sort of backing into the car. And I do know it's out there on the internet that he got in the car. They got a close-up look of his face. They left. So, it's kind of like we knew he left the compound. But, after that, it was, I lost my train of thought. I've done talked to so many people.
No, and we appreciate you coming on.
No, I'm trying to remember all the details. And
you got a lot, man. You got a lot.
I mean, it's
you got a lot happening around you. Let's take a break. Let's take a humor break, Steve. Let's take a breath. We got Eva's mom in here, Meemaw. Eva always gets embarrassed when her mom comes in the chat. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought because someone unmuted the mic and then the reverb. And
We'll hear break. Steve collects his thoughts, and you collect yours.
No, I was just gonna say the Daily Mail. As soon as I pulled up, they work hard, man. Most people think that they are a tabloid and that they're bullshit, and that may be. Look, not every news agency gets it right, but they have been out there nonstop from morning until night. I went down to the gas station. Yeah, I went down to the gas station. The lady was getting, nuts and a drink, and then drove right back. They work hard.
Yeah. I think I was talking about the FBI agents, but we can take a break. We can get back to it in case I missed something. So just whenever y'all want to get back to it, I'm good.
Eva, what are your up until here? I mean, I've seen the property. I was spooked out. I went to the other side because Steve, you mentioned that perhaps Craig knows the neighbor, or you implied he does know the neighbor. He's good. He's tight with him. And that side has CCTV cameras and warnings up on that side of the street. You want to tell people briefly how the two properties connect so that there we go. Perfect. Thank you, Eva.
Yes. So as you can see in the middle square, the trapezoid there, you can see up top where the house is of Craig. The property adjacent to him, right beside, if you're looking at from this position to the left, if you look at the end of that cul-de-sac right there at the end of the road, there is actually a gate. And see, that is one of the other things that's kind of throwing me off. I have, back in the old days, this road used to go all the way back and wind out to the highway out there. And if you look at the guy that is back behind him, it looks like there's some paths. I think they interconnect because I've seen some of those military vehicles rolling in and out. But if you look, other than the one property to the upper right, all of those properties connect. The bottom one there is the one that it adjoins my property just on the tips. So if you can see, they have a lot of property just right there of probably, Lord, I'm thinking it is about, I think that is about 15 acres or so, give or take, 15, 14. And then that one piece of property they bought over there is just, I don't know. Some of these other properties could have been purchased, but they did not. They had houses on, like the one to the red, just the top there. That is the property where he cut the boat up. So it's kind of weird. They're buying property, but then some of them they're leaving alone. But the one that kind of really makes me
say
wonder,
that you like breeze right over that, like it's like an everyday thing, like people are cutting boats in half. You want to explain, because you explained that Fox has verified this with another neighbor. A lot of this, like I got to be honest with you, Steve. First of all, when I entered the property yesterday, I'm entering another state. You invited me over, but I'm sitting there like, yeah, this is a brother of a serial killer, and this nice guy You know, maybe it's Southern hospitality, but maybe this whole damn community is in it together. Like maybe you're a part of this commune and I'm going to get chopped up. And I shared my location with Eva. I said, Eva, this guy's invited me on. But no, I mean, you've been very friendly, but this is like scary. Like you point out the properties. You point out that he has unfiltered access. You immediately said, look, he goes away for time sporadically. He'll just disappear for days at a time. We spoke today and said, look, you realize that his mother's still alive, that he may, and she lives nearby, he may go visit her, but not for days at a time, right? That'd be weird. A 59-year-old going to visit. I mean, I think so, maybe, unless you were, taking care of her. But, and then you started saying other things that didn't add up. And I had to ask myself, like, is this guy legitimate? So, but other agencies have started verifying what you're saying. It's just, and then like, so one of the things is like, well, he leaves sporadically. Well, he has, I think you said at one point, maybe 5 dogs, 9 dogs. I think I've heard 5 to 9 somewhere, because you don't know, you've never seen them visibly. You're just going off the distinctive barks, right?
I've seen them a little. I've seen a few of them. They'll come up to that fence. I don't know if you noticed it when you went by. Several of them will come up there, but then I can hear dogs behind the house. So yeah, you can't see anything hardly anyway.
So my logical question was, well, who the hell's taking care of the dogs when you go away for 3-4 days, even 3-4 days, right? Even with a dog overnight. Eva and I were supposed to come together to you, but we have 2 dogs, 3 kids, right? The kids are easier than the dogs actually when we go away. So it begs some questions that need to be asked, and I think I'm glad that you're asking, and I'm glad that you took on a charge. You were willing to speak, and it sounds like you're being like, there's no reason for you not to be truthful here, right? There's no reason for you to lie. There's no advantage to you. You're retired. You have a nice house. You had a lovely, I think that was that your wife, your daughter?
Yeah, that's my wife.
Yesterday. Yeah. So, I mean, there's no reason for you that would compel you to come on and talk to the media and us and to lie. So, but I had to do that assessment, right? You always have to make that assessment. Is this guy off his rockers? It doesn't sound like you're off your rockers. It sounds like your neighbor may be off his rockers.
Well, let me give you some background on me. Maybe that might help some of your audience as well. I have multiple degrees. I have about 9 years of college. I just don't use it right now because I am retired military, and my poor body's just gotten beat up from it, and I'm trying to enjoy life. I coached football for 25 years. I started a Pop Warner League here in town. I've always been very active. I coach my kids. I mentored at the local school. I was actually recently, I've been working on my master's in education to teach social studies. So I'm not a run-of-the-mill kind of crazy guy that, wants a 15 minutes of fame. I don't care. I've been on TV probably 15 times for various murders and, football and that kind of thing. I'm just a dad. I feel like, I'm at the age, I'm in my 50s. So I feel like I'm sort of the dad of the neighborhood. And I am one of those guys that, I'm not going to be scared like most of my neighbors are doing. They don't want to be talked to. I want people to know that at least right now, I'm keeping an eye on everything. I feel like things are safe. Yes, it's sketchy down there. It is sketchy as all get out. But at the same time, I'm just an average guy. I'm an educated guy. I'm retired military. I spent about 17 years in there before they medically retired me. I have 5 children of my own, and I have 3 daughters out of those 5. And, when I see things like this, it terrifies the bejesus out of me. I still have a 21-year-old home that's in college, and I have recently had this conversation about some of these type things, and I use it as saying, hey, this is exactly the kind of thing that I've been trying to educate you on, but not to freak you out. But at the same time, you have to be conscious of it. And over the past 22 years, I keep an eye on the neighborhood because, like I told you, I've got single mothers, people across the street from Craig, where the big red blob is. They look like maybe in their 40s. They're a new couple to the neighborhood. The one of the lots in between there, beside the lot they have on the other side of the road, they are a young couple. They have 2 small children and 1 on the way. So, I feel like I have to protect these people, and I guess I've got just enough of what's to stand up and say, hey, look, if nobody else wants to talk to you, come talk to me, because I'll tell you what I see. I've got nothing to gain. I'm just a guy trying to look out for my neighborhood and, let people know, because one of the things that we've all learned is, well, if we're not asking questions, we don't know what's going on, because the reports I saw for days was nothing about the serial killer. It was all about the serial killer in New York. There was literally nothing here. And I know if I hadn't been looking that day and being like I am and noticed those unusual cars up there to send off a red flag, and to be sitting here long enough to see it happen within that 30-minute window, I would still not know what's going on today. And then all of a sudden, this is all over the news. Now a lot of people's going to freak out. So I feel like I'm doing my job as a citizen around here and as a parent and all that good stuff. So no, I have nothing to gain. This is just my world. This is just the kind of guy I am. I'm easygoing. That's why I invited you over. So,
in fact, you have I appreciate it. And in fact, you have a lot to lose, because you did invite me over, and now I've gotten you a GoPro, Steve, and myself one, and we're going to go on a secret mission onto his property. We're going to strap the GoPro on our head. You're going to watch my back, because I'm honestly scared of like bugs and snakes and shit. So you'll watch my back. We'll hit the property. We'll get some footage, and we'll land back at the LZ when we're done, and take it from there. I'm kidding.
This will be a short-lived mission. As soon as he sees a bug or a spider, he's out. So it won't. You guys won't get far.
I was going to tell you, there are a lot of snakes here, a lot of copperheads, very poisonous. So we have a lot of bugs. It reminds me, actually, this area here reminds me when I went to boot camp in Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina. It reminds me a lot of that, other than the sand. So if you want to tromp through the woods, you go ahead. I would encourage you probably not to do that till the winter time. But just to tell you, there are investigative reporters out here. They're doing things. I'm not going to mention any names, but I've seen people snooping through mail, going to, in the mailbox. I mean, people are trying to find out some information. They're just doing what they have to do.
Yes, I noticed that yesterday. I asked you. I said I see one piece of mail was in the mailbox. I don't even check my own mail, so I have no reason to check his. But I asked you. I said, is he even home? And you said, yeah. And then we saw an image. You put me on. The Daily Mail has an image of him leaving yesterday in the car with a gentleman in a white shirt. Who was he with? Was he going off with the feds, police for questioning down at the station? What was that?
Nobody's talking. So here's kind of the hypothesis I've come up with. The best I can it makes sense to me is that he's lawyered up and he come to get him, because he is not anybody I've ever seen down there. He is not anybody I recognize. The car doesn't. I'm kind of almost thinking he's not even an attorney around here. And then he rolled out and I haven't seen him back. The girlfriend hasn't been back. I do know Daily Mail reached out to the ex-wife. She doesn't want to really respond. So nobody's really saying anything. I'm reaching out to a lot of people. A lot of them giving me, their phone numbers, and we'll, text each other. And it's like, hey, have you heard anything? No, have you? I think they're keeping a lot of this on the down low, but it's one of those things that I guess if you don't ask questions and start digging, I don't think we're going to get an answer. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure if the local sheriff is really up to speed with a whole lot of anything other than, maybe what's going on. So my thought was if the guy got lawyered up, he left prior to those guys showing up yesterday in the pickup trucks. So I don't know. That's why I was telling you earlier, I think, and I've told so many people that I kind of think that he's either said, hey, look, I've got a laptop, I've got this, I've got that, and you guys are more than welcome to look at it, go get it, I want to clear my name. Or they feel like they've kind of got him in a pincer move and they're kind of getting him against the wall, and maybe he's going to roll over on his brother, and now maybe he has some evidence to corroborate that. I don't know. I'm just speculating either way, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't the latter.
Sorry, I was giving that. Do you want to take it for a second? Do you have any questions or?
I did actually, while we still got this map up here, I had a question. So the properties, the teal is all the properties that Rex owns. Are there houses on all of those lots or just the one that Craig lives on?
Just that one, at least as far as I can ever see. So for example, the one across the street, the only one he's got by himself up there, the rectangle, there used to be a house on there. And I know this because my daughter was friends of the son. And that guy went back into the Army. So last I heard, he was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I don't know if they sold the house or whatever it was. I do believe it was a mobile home. So they may have sold that itself. I can't promise you that it's still not sitting back there. But at one time, there was a house. As far as I know, the other two properties, I've never seen anything either through Google Earth. I can actually go back to the corner of my property to look at that large lot that's the square on the bottom there. But unfortunately, 20% away of it, it's all uphill, so you can't see anything that way. I've ridden on the other side of the road. Again, it's just wooded. You can't see anything. I don't remember recalling a driveway there. So I'm pretty sure this shack that he lives in there, which you can only see the roof, and you really can't hardly tell what color it is unless you get up close enough on the ground. I do believe that's the only dwelling on all the properties.
I was wondering because I could see the property across the street. You can see that there's kind of like almost like a driveway, meaning that
it is.
It went to somewhere. There was a house, or it still is, but it's just odd because this is where Rex is planning on retiring, but there's no other houses on the properties, and if you've never seen him there, it means he doesn't visit, he doesn't come around. It's so odd to think that somebody would buy property sight unseen and say, I've never been there, but this is where I'm going to retire.
Well, that's one of the biggest questions I have about all of this in the family. Okay, don't get me wrong. We have a mass exodus from people in New York area, Ohio, a lot of them moving to South Carolina. I get it. The weather's nice. The taxes up there suck. I get it. I get why they want to come here. What I don't understand is how does somebody in New York, do you throw a dart on a map and hope something sticks that you want to be at and you land in Chester? I'll give you my personal experiences with talking to other neighbors. We had a neighbor across the street who was from Ohio. 2 houses up from me, there's a guy from California with his wife. So we have people that's moved here from other places. The best guess I can get from those two were, we wanted to live in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, but we got to look and it's hard to find a place. The property is expensive. The taxes are off the chain. That's what we were moving away from. So then they come back to a smaller town in York County called Rock Hill. It's kind of a mid-sized town. It's starting to get better. But then again, they're starting to have that spillover from Charlotte. So what they end up doing is this is the next best thing. So again, I bought a property when I retired at a lake here about an hour away where I've got property. Guy was from New York. He told me the same thing. So it is not uncommon. However, most of those people found real estate agents and other things that sort of turned them on. They had friends that were in the area. I've never heard him say anything as to why they found this property, why they continue to buy this property. Now, the only other question in that equation is, he was married at one time. She does live here in town. I don't know if she's a Chester native or not. And if she was, then that begs a question, how in God's name did y'all meet? She actually worked for the DNR here. So she's Department of Natural Resources. So she seemed to be kind of a squared away person. So there's just so many little things that make you wonder, why are you here? I didn't even know, to be honest with you, talking about Craig as well, I didn't even know his history. I didn't find that out until I started looking at some of the the news footage and some of the articles. I did not know that he got high on cocaine, I think at 22, and killed that police captain in New York. I kind of think, okay, maybe he's down here trying to get a fresh start. But then again, my common sense kicks in. Okay, fine. You did your time, which I don't know how much it was. The FBI told me that he was a prior military, so apparently that happened somewhere. And then, well, if you're doing all of that, then why is all this other stuff happening? Why are you here? Why are you doing this? And if you're going to be here and you're going to start your life over, then why are you such a friggin' obnoxious jerk that's like irritating the crap out of everybody in the entire neighborhood? So you see his behavior. And again, I promise, I tell you, he may be as innocent as a church mouse. But from the videos that I saw, I think it was on YouTube where they interviewed Rex through, I think it was CNN or somebody, at least he seemed cordial. It seemed a little bit professional. If you was to meet Craig, he is sort of the antithesis of that. He is obnoxious. He can be a nice guy, don't get me wrong, but he comes across as very rough, straightforward, bad attitude. If I had to pick, if they said one of those guys were the serial killer and I had to choose, I would pick Craig because he's just that kind of way. And then obviously you see his surroundings. It doesn't look like somebody who is, I would say, all in touch with their mental faculties, I would think. But that is what has concerned me. I think I told you about, well, if the brother is this psychopathic, I would not be surprised if Craig is either in on it, beholden to the brother, because I think maybe they're just, tight. I think probably their dad maybe abused those boys. I mean, one of the reporters told me he used to jog around the neighborhood with an axe in his hand or a hatchet or something. So it doesn't sound like they had a good upbringing. It's just, if you take everything in totality, then you start seeing this picture that doesn't make a lot of sense. There are too many things that sort of stand out that look odd, creepy, weird. I mean, they just don't fit.
Yeah, and so there's a couple questions I wanted to get to them before we forget, but good questions. Does he run a company or work for someone, if you know, and what kind of construction?
I could not tell you. I've had a 2-minute conversation with him in the past, and he was talking about doing construction work. I've never seen any signage on his truck. I've not seen a business card. I guess I kind of assumed that maybe he worked for himself, but then, okay, I'm going like this. I know plenty of self-employed people. Most people tend to try to drum up business, right? Especially with your neighbors. So he's never offered to come do anything at my house or friends or anything like that. Never in 22 and a half years have I seen a work truck that anybody's ever had. So I'm assuming maybe he's just a self-employed mom and pop kind of operation. He doesn't say anything. I've never seen him do anything locally. Everything I've ever seen him, as far as transportation, I've seen him outside of maybe grabbing something at a local restaurant or something. He appears to be heading towards Rock Hill, which is just 20 miles south of Charlotte. So he's heading always that way. It's just an odd thing. I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of people, and nothing he does makes any sense. I mean, sorry, I can't answer that question.
I think I said to you, if this is a court of law just based on images alone, the images I've seen of Craig frighten me more than the ones I see of Rex. There's some stuff that the media will toss around, web searches and escorts. Look, there's a lot of married men in America and not married men that get escorts and search for some pretty foul things online. But just on what you've described, we'll have to wait, right? We'll have to wait until I think what you described, him riding out with a lawyer, the FBI knocking on neighbors' doors, including yours, someone taking a satchel from the house. We don't know who, but you said they look to be military type individuals. And I have a question on the house here. It's it's going to go over the house part here, Steve. And there's some antennas here that I originally asked Eva if they were power coming to the house, but they're not. Or maybe they are, but you could tell. So right here, there's two antennas. One is pointed out towards the street, and the other one is pointed towards the water where that red house, that large red house was, if I were to accurately describe the location. I'm wondering if you know what those are for, if those are something that other neighbors have that's common, or.
So, I'm old enough to have grown up before, well, cable still existed, but I was one of those that my family did not believe in cable. So I grew up with the regular air channels. So I'm used to the aerials that they had up on top of the house. I'm not going to tell you that's not one. It doesn't look like anything I recognize and I worked on electronics when I was in the military. So it looks more, the one to the top almost looks like you might be looking sideways at like some kind of satellite dish. We do
but
have
it's pointed out, not up at the sky. That's the problem.
Right. But I'm saying I do know Dish Network. We have Dish Network here through AT&T and that kind of stuff. Some of those, they scan low to the horizon for those satellites. But the thing that kind of throws me off is if it's not an aerial, which you only need one, but if it's not a regular antenna for live active air, I don't think with those trees, and I know it's hard to tell with a two-dimensional image, but those trees would be blocking any kind of satellite signal. So I don't know if there's some kind of transmission through radio. They do remind me of some of the antennas we used to use in what we call the rat rigs, the little small surveillance electronics machines that we used to tow behind some of the deuce and a halves. To be honest with you, I've never noticed it, and I'm assuming that is the rear of the house, I do believe, right? I'm going to have to go back there and look at it, to be honest, because now you've kind of got me intrigued. I will try to get a closer look to see if I can.
Well, yeah, now you got me intrigued, because if it is the rear, it would be pointing towards the looking glass direction, not the direction I just pointed out. Yeah. So if it is, so I will.
See, I do think it's the front. I do believe, but even still, as well as I do, you've been down there. Though, if you look right in front of the one on the bottom, I mean, that's a pine tree. They get 50, 60 feet tall. The only thing you could pick up with an aerial would be the regular bouncing waves wherever in the world. You just need a little opening for that. But if you've got any kind of like satellite, that's gonna block it all.
And you said he didn't do much social media or doesn't have a presence on social media. So this will be interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, he was a loner. To be honest with you, I'm amazed he was married. And then I am really amazed that the second lady showed up down there. Because, I mean, he's creepy. It's not the fact that he just has a bad attitude. I mean, he's just weird. If you you would kind of have to look in his eyes to kind of see. It just looks like any given second he would be a hatchet murderer. I mean, he just looks like that guy. I get a vibe from him. Again, it's my personal vibe.
What gives you the vibe? Dynamite being chucked into a reservoir, or cutting boats in half, or hitting people with bats, or killing a police officer. I think you are allowed, I think, to have that vibe. I think anyone listening in would have that too. I think the scariest part is that it doesn't matter if he had a girlfriend, because like the guy that they're accusing, Rex, had a wife and 2 kids, and they didn't know, right? So it wouldn't matter if you really want to conceal something like this and have the intent to harm people. You can do it, and that's obvious with Rex. So I digress, Eva. If you have any questions, so let me get back to your question, Steve. You asked if I'm going to come back out, and yes, we'll get those parcels of land surveyed with a drone, and we'll take a peek-see. We'll do a maybe night ops mission. You and I will go on GoPros and lasers and shit. But no, I'll be back, and I think I told you that Eva has that long lens too. So if he is there, perhaps we can capture an image there. I'm intrigued by this all, just because, I mean, I got there, right? I got there knowing that this was the property, and then you you just threw bombshell after bombshell at me that started with the avalanche. And then I was like, okay, like I always, because I put stuff out on Twitter, and I have to get a sense of the person that I'm interacting. Like I said, all right, is this person legit? And then CNN rolled up, and I'm like, okay, I think I can go with this before anyone else can, and started putting it out there. And then like 2 hours later, I was like, I did like relief, like when I saw the actual truck, they had video of it in South Carolina being towed to New York. I'm like, okay, this guy hasn't been bullshitting me. So I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your hospitality. I appreciate you letting me know in the morning that you're still alive since I've met you. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's going to take more than this crazy mess to get rid of me. I mean, I've survived him for 22 and a half years. So, I mean, not knowing what's happened. So, I mean, at least now the light is shining on a lot of this stuff. So at least I feel like, you know, what bad can happen now at this point. I just can't see anything good of coming with this because, you know, let's just say he's innocent. That's fine and dandy. But see, now the brother's been arrested. It looks like they've got a good case for at least 3 and potentially the 4th murder. Then, you know, now that the brother owns all the property, you know, now is that going to force Craig to have to move? What are they going to do with his land? Because I'm assuming, you know, I know he owes back taxes. I'm assuming they're going to confiscate most of it. You know, what's going to happen? And if let's just say Craig is a little weird and somehow they can't connect him and then this guy has to move, he winds up in some other locale, what could potentially start happening in that neighborhood or in that general area? So I look at all the possibilities. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Don't get me wrong. I don't. But, you know, in my degree, I have a criminology minor. I've always been fascinated to why people do what they do. I've seen some crazy people in my own family. See, as a matter of fact, look at that picture right there of Rex. If you cut his hair, that right there, if you take that picture of Craig getting in the car and almost superimpose it, they look like twins. If you would cut his hair or Photoshop his hair being short, like kind of like mine, you'd see there's no difference. But he has a creepier face to me than this guy. But yeah, it's it just threw me off.
Hopefully he's not tuning into YouTube tonight, Steve.
Well, you know, I don't think he's that sophisticated. I'm not worried about Rex because I'm pretty sure he's got his hands full. I will tell you this too. Now, I don't think Rex is back. Excuse me. I don't think Craig's back home. The girl, you know, again, I was surprised, and there's been times where she's disappeared for, you know, weeks at a time. I thought maybe they had a love spat, and, you know, that people have that, but I don't think I've seen him back home. And to tell you how I kind of really believe it, so today, you know, people are jumping out. They're knocking on the gate. They're digging through it, rifling through his mailbox. I mean, they're doing all kinds of things. And unless Craig is one of those individuals that's like, okay, now I'm in trouble, so I'm going to keep my trap shut, I still don't think he's at home. I'm kind of wondering if maybe the attorney may be doing some pro bono work, maybe trying to find him some other place to live so he escapes the media onslaught.
I think there's a search that is impending. I think maybe the lawyer may have worked with that. I mean, I think that it's inevitable, right? And you're not going to have him there during that search. That's personally what I think. And I've said that when I pulled up. Yes, I wouldn't have taken a 5.5 hour drive if I didn't think that a search here wasn't imminent. I do think that they have to search his property. They searched a storage unit in Long Island. It's owned by Rex. And as you can see, it's just sketchy as hell. And even without looking at the drone footage, you've already, you know, alluded to, here's some sketchy stuff. And not having a good attitude and cutting boats in half doesn't make you a serial killer, but it certainly could add to a behavioral profile of someone that should be checked into.
Well, you know, again, I've been in the military and stuff like this. I'm used to paying attention to detail and all that kind of stuff. But I'll just give an example. My daughter, right? I told you she followed me to Winthrop University. That's where I graduated from with my undergrad. And she's a psychology major. And I'm going to tell you, the first thing that flew out of her mouth, She said, I told you, Daddy. I told you he's probably got some bodies buried back there. I mean, he fits every kind of weird thing we talk about in class. She don't really hear me say a lot of those things. So it kind of gives me a different perspective to go, okay, I'm not kind of over exaggerating, because it's a simple thing. When you take in totality of all the weird crap, I mean, I guess it would be nice if you could go down there and take some footage up close of the house and just see how creepy the house looks with the vines growing on it. It looks like a horror movie. And I was talking to a neighbor yesterday, and this is just one of these little facts you will find interesting. 25, 30, well, no, it's probably more than 25 years. It was probably in the late 80s or early 90s. Chester, which is one of those towns that a lot of movie companies use, the miniseries Chiefs, and you can look it up. It was based off a novel. Was filmed here. Carrie 2, The Patriot with Mel Gibson. I mean, a lot of movies occur here in town. Matter of fact, you can ride downtown and you'll see Delano hanging up on one of the buildings down there, and that was from Chiefs. Well, where I'm going with this is that the movie Chiefs, if you read the book, it was based on one of the Carradine brothers. He was the villain in the movie. It spanned over like 3 decades or something like this. Foxy Funderburk was his name. He was actually going out and he was grabbing young men off the highways and doing whatever, and then he was burying them on his property. And I told the other person the other day, I said, that is just, it's almost like creepy irony that 35, 40 years ago, they filmed this movie here, that I would not be surprised that is not what's taking place back there.
And that would be, well, I'll have to do the math, but their, as I understand it, their father died when they were about 11, when Rex was about 11 years old. You just kind of gave me the creepers there. You didn't tell me that before, so I appreciate that.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I have questions about, but I think you've answered everything that I have. I want to go quickly to the chats. There's been a lot of support from the members in the chat, Steve. Thanking you for speaking out and
Sure.
inviting me, obviously. We'll try to bring you some merchandise, some cool t-shirts next time I see you.
Cool.
We'll try to get that parcel land covered with drone. And yeah, I think Eva will be able to take some close-ups. And I'm planning on getting it's called a first-person view drone. So you saw the drone I have. First of all, did you see, I almost lost my drone. CNN camera guy it was on the roof of the minivan.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought maybe you just did that on purpose and you was going to scoot up the road a little bit.
So much distract. I was interviewing you, and then my gimbal went flaccid, Steve. It just fell right over to the side during our interview because the heat was so extreme. The CNN lady, I don't think they've experienced heat like that. They were both sweating, and then I backed out because I wanted to see what all the commotion was in front of the house, and I left the drone up on the roof. This community would have killed me had I killed that drone.
It's hot here. We do have probably as much humidity as Florida does in the summertime. The only worst place I can think of, to be honest with you, is in Columbia, which is 50 miles south of me. That's where Fort Jackson is. I went to boot camp in this weather. I left in July and went through July, August, and September, and it was one of the hottest years in 30 years. And that, I promise you, I've been to football. I played football, so I've been to practice and stuff like that. That was the worst thing I've ever done. So when I have those days like yesterday, and I was out there till about 8:30 last night. It was just an all-day fiasco, talking to people, trying to find out details so I can let you guys know kind of what I find out, because nobody's going to share anything here. You kind of have to be your own investigative reporter, because everybody wants a scoop and everybody wants to know anything, but I don't think the sheriff is either not saying or doesn't know anything. I think probably the FBI's got total control. They're probably only going to tell him what they want when they show up, because no local law enforcement showed up with those 2 trucks yesterday. So they're not even doing that anymore.
You and I spoke about that. I think it struck me that there's nuances, right, between different states, and even just the attitude of different states. And the attitude between Long Island and South Carolina is very different. You go through South Carolina. First of all, South Carolina is gorgeous. So Thank you for the tidbit of information on the movies that have been filmed there. When you're driving through there on Sunrise, we've been there for Alex Murdoch, Low Country. It's just gorgeous. It's like there's areas where there's just green grass that's very long in the sun and the dew, and it's picturesque. But it's very different. You see Confederate flags. You see "Don't Tread on Me" flags. Thin blue line flags. It's a very different culture than Long Island, and I think some of those nuances will play here. And I think when you told me that the FBI is involved, that I sort of sighed a breath of relief, because you don't have those nuances when the FBI comes in, right? If a federal judge signs off on something, it doesn't matter what Sheriff Billy Bob says over there. So yeah, we'll be monitoring this. I appreciate your time. I know you're going to be on tonight. Let us know. I'll get the link of where you're going to be tonight, and I'll make sure I share that on Twitter, so that we can promote you on these channels. I like seeing you up there and spitting the truth.
That's what
You said news. You'll be on News Nation tonight, right?
Correct, with Ashley. What's her name? Ashley Banfield. That's it. I had a brain cramp there just for a second, but yeah, Ashley Banfield.
She's sort of become my arch nemesis, Steve, but I'll allow it.
Hey, I mean, a producer called me from New York, so I'm like, okay, who is calling me from New York? I'm liable to get calls from anybody, so I don't pay any attention to it. And then she shot me a text, and it was like, okay. Do you think you could, have an exclusive tonight? And I'm like, well, I mean, okay, fine, because I feel like somebody needs to let somebody know something. And I get it. There's people all over the world right now who are asking questions, and I just haven't seen really anybody from around here, unless I've missed something. I haven't seen a soul other than myself on the news or talking to anybody. And I just feel like, somebody's got to tell something. Somebody's got to share what's going on here. Somebody's got to give this perspective, because, I've grew up here my whole life. So, I mean, other than when I went in the military, so it's been a nice place to live. But I'm not going to lie to you. If I go down the street, I mean, it's as creepy as all get out. I mean, I've seen less horror issues on Halloween. So, I just got to do what I have to do. I've just got to let people know things, and I just feel like it's my job.
I think it's important. I think what you're doing really is important. I haven't seen or heard either, looking through articles and the news, anybody from your area. I don't think they interviewed anybody else. And like you said, the police, FBI aren't going to come up and down your street and knock on your door and all your neighbors' doors and be like, hey, just wanted to let you guys know what's going on. So, you keeping in touch, and even with the media, and going out and asking the police questions and being able to let your neighbors know, because I'm sure, once word got around and everybody figured out, oh, this is Rex Heuermann, I'm sure it made, all your neighbors I would be very unsettled, especially like you said, some of those couples that have small children. I have small children. I probably would have already packed up and been at Airbnb for the week. So,
Yeah.
No, I think it's really important that you're speaking and you're keeping in touch with the media, because most of the time you'll learn more from them than you'll going out and speaking to the cops.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've got a lot of senior citizens. We've got a lot of people. I don't know. One thing when I was in undergrad as a social worker, one of the things that you're taught is you have to advocate for yourself and others. Well, I took that to heart. Well, me being a coach and being a dad, being in the military, you learn, if you're not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it for you. And it really amazes me, because I've been lucky enough to live on this earth 54 years. And I'm just utterly amazed when like I've told you before, this is not the first time I've been on TV or anything else because something stupid happened. I'm just amazed where people, like, even here in the neighborhood, it's kind of like the mafia is going to get them if they open their mouth and say anything. I mean, they don't even ask a question. So how else is the rest of the county? Because I've been seeing people write in, because now it's starting to get out there and people are starting to be concerned. and they're going, oh my God, is this guy involved? Well, I don't know. I'm just telling you what the police tell me. Well, was the brother coming down here? When they heard that he'd planned on retiring down here, I think that sent chills to everybody that come out. I mean, they're starting to show up from everywhere. And that's where I think the FBI or whoever has kind of dropped the ball, because they're leaving these poor people hanging. And that's why I feel like I've got a duty to inform these people, let them know, look, it looks ugly. And we all know the property if you've never been here, because this is one of those streets that if you don't know it's here, you would go right by it. You just would not pay any attention to it. And as well I do, once you get to the stop sign up there, it's a little 2-lane highway. We're not far from an industrial park. We're, half a mile from a major highway. I mean, it's not like we're out in Route 1 boondocks. I mean, we're real close to the city. So, but you just got to be looking for it. So, I feel like I've just got to do and help these people understand what's going on. It's like watching the news. If a reporter don't tell you what's happening, you don't know what's happening. And I'm just kind of sad, to be honest with you, that nobody around here, at least on this street, has been willing to step up and at least acknowledge what they think. They'll tell people off camera, but they won't stand up. And I don't care. That's just me.
Remind them tonight on News Nation. Look, I tell people this all the time, and so I do stuff on TikTok, right? I'll make a video, 60 seconds, about a missing girl that's 5 years old, and people will pop into my TikTok and say, I live 7 minutes down the road and I've never heard of this, because people receive their news in all different types of ways, right? And some not at all. And so, but my point is that perhaps there's someone that saw something in the past 20 years. If you don't know about it, how are you going to say, all of a sudden, just like you, okay, well, stop, shit ain't mathing, right? Well, he did this, or he cut up a boat. Well, we don't know. This just happened on your block, right? We don't know. He's lived, it looks like, in Ohio. He has charged in New York, wherever he's been, Vegas, his brother's been to. This is the way that you get awareness out and say, what have you seen? It's been a decade. It's been a decade-long crime without anyone. And in just 5-6 days, we have a lot of information. And so, and I know the media, I think what the media is doing is waiting for more, because right now, aside from a vehicle that's seized, they're seeing the same thing you and I are seeing, right? It's a creepy place, but there's not much you can report on that. You can't say this guy's creepy, but as soon as they have evidence that allows them to search that property, this is your face will be everywhere.
I hope not. I really do hope, for everybody's sake, if they're innocent, or let's say if Craig's innocent, I hope for his sake it comes out clean. I hope for the neighborhood's sake he's not involved. But to be honest, there's too many unanswered questions about that truck's connectivity to New York last year that it really concerns me, because otherwise I think you at least have to know. And I think that would terrify people here if that gets out. And I'm just scared to death for them that, what's that going to do? I'll give you another example of even something I don't think a lot of people think about. Well, let's just say Craig is innocent as all get out. His brother was just bad, and that's just the end of it. Well, when the news starts hitting here, you get these old country boys that may now think you're one of these weirdos that's killing people. It would not surprise me a bit if a truckload full of somebody show up down there and try to take him out. I mean, we're in the South. I don't mean much by it. I think it can happen anywhere. But when people start feeling threatened and scared, people may do something that they're going to regret. And that to me is very concerning, because I don't think nobody's really educated the public enough to sort of squelch some of those concerns. And, by doing so, you're letting the community down. I get it. They're probably not thinking about it, because they probably think. But see, here's the problem. The first several interviews, it was all about New York. It was just New York, New York, New York. You did not hear anything. It took me days of looking through some of the articles, and then it mentioned in a little small section about property in South Carolina, and then I think one of them said Chester. Well, it took until I think yesterday before everybody started realizing where was Chester at? And then people, showed up like the cavalcade yesterday all at once. So I think even the media, yeah, you busted the guy Thursday. I get it. Well, now you're down here seizing a vehicle on Friday, and for several days after that, nobody here in the local area on TV, the newspaper, anything we have ever mentioned that. So nobody. I put a couple of things out on Facebook to people I know just to let them know kind of what was going on. And every one of them was like, I have no clue. Where is that at? I mean, what's going on? Well, have you heard about this? Well, I really hadn't had time to see the large news, but at the same time, how come nobody mentioned Chester? So it took them at least 5 or 6 days before they even mentioned it. And I think people now are like mad because like, how come nobody's telling anybody? I was like, I can't answer that. I'm just telling you what I see. This is why I go on TV. This is why I talk to the news crews. This is why I see people on the streets and I tell them, because nobody tells you anything.
I was flabbergasted. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, but I was flabbergasted that local media didn't show up to noonish. I think 1 maybe. Like
Yeah.
that flurry. And I want to give credit to, I believe it was Audrey Conklin that broke it on Fox the night before. Yeah. That this was the property, but just like you said, like I'd expect your local media would have been there that night. Like this is a case that rocked the United States back in 2010. Here we are with an arrest with a guy that supposedly killed 3 people, and now you find out he has a property in your town. I would think that the media would have been. I mean, they did get there; it was just a little late. But anyways, I digress there. Steve, I want to say thank you. I want you to get a break before you go on News Nation tonight, so you're fresh. But I want to honestly, sincerely thank you for your hospitality when I arrived yesterday. Thank you for the updates, and thank you for coming on. I mean, kind of gave us an exclusive, right? Before Ashley, and we really appreciate that. It's a lot of information, and I'll tell you, this community appreciates it more than anyone because what you've given out and the video, it keeps them busy, whether it's for good or bad. It's going to keep them busy and digging, and that's the only way we're going to find something is by digging. So we appreciate it. I'm going to let Eva say goodnight, and I'm going to let you get some rest, and then we'll check in with you later tonight and tomorrow.
All right, will do. Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It really was. It was such a pleasure talking to you. This is actually the longest I think this is our longest YouTube. Usually we hop off after about an hour and a half. So just kind of, I didn't realize it went this long until I just looked at the counter. But no, and everybody else I see in the comments absolutely just enjoyed the discussion and everything. And you actually fit right in here in our little true crime community because we're all here because we're the same kind of people. We like to ask questions. We want to know what's going on. And we also, you touched on something. We like to advocate for people. We usually advocate for missing persons, but just in general, anybody, we like to speak up for people. So you fit right in around here. You got new friends.
Well, that's good. I mean, I enjoy being around that people are trying to do a good thing in life because we need more people like that because, without a voice, sometimes people overlook things. And I think, that's what hit me about this case was, he's killing all these girls that are in their 20s and I have 3 daughters and I can only imagine what their families are going through. And to me, and this is just my personal opinion, Craig may be as innocent as a pastor in a local church. However, if this guy's guilty of anything, and if he has any way of patching maybe some of the other murders that are there they know about or some of the ones they don't know about, I think it's worth to the families because God knows I can only imagine what that would be like. And by the way, I appreciate everybody's comments, by the way.
They love you, Stephen. We'd love to have you back. Last question before we let you go. Because I offered this the other day, you wouldn't answer. Favorite kind of food? What can I bring for food next time I come? Because I'm not coming empty-handed. It's not happening.
You know what? I've like I told you, I'm trying to rehab my knees. I'm on a diet. I've started working back out. I want to get my 30-year-old body back. I appreciate the offer. If you want to bring me something, just bring me a Sprite. I've even cut out caffeine, so I'm doing good. So we can call it even that. I'm just enjoying it. I'm glad you guys have access. I think you're doing a good thing. I'd really never heard of you until I did a look last night, and I was like, okay, you know, these guys are doing something positive, and I'm happy to be here. And you know, I'll come back anytime you invite me.
I appreciate you, Steve, and I will definitely bring you a Sprite. Give your family a hello, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Okay. Thank
you. Whew, that was a lot. Take the focus off of me and put it back. I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined. We don't usually bleed into issues like that. We went right from a whopper of Carlee. Was it? Yeah, Carlee Russell. Sorry.
Russell.
Yeah, Carlee Russell to this, and it's just like a wow. I still have to absorb it when you interview and talk to people and retrieve information in real time and try to push it out to people. You also have to take time to process it yourself, and that's what I need to do. So this was great. Steve has been great. I want to just quickly say thank you to the folks that we have a new member, Lisa. Super stickers from folks. We sincerely appreciate it. This will be used for that gas money to get back and forth to Steve and the site. I do think that the search is pending. So we appreciate it. We appreciate everyone's support. I will let Eva say goodnight, and we'll see you on Twitter. I love you guys. Be kind to each other. Face the light, and we will see you soon. And if there's any updates from the South Carolina side, we'll let you know. I've also been in touch with a woman who lives about a block down from the Long Island property where he was arrested. So we've been talking on TikTok. I'd like to get her on the show. Maybe we can have both of them on the show. So we'll see what we can do. I love you all. Eva, I'll let you say goodnight, and we'll see you guys later on Twitter.
Have a good one, everybody. This was a fun one. See you guys soon.